بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. We have a question here. It says, what should be the priorities of Hanabila in scholarship in the modern age? The modern age, first of all, it's very difficult for a person to study al-ilm in an age that we call modern. Modernity is a calamity. But we have to submit to Allah's will, and we have to be patient and to accept our qadr. Anyway, scholarship in the modern age, this is different from any. Your experience as a person who's trying to become a scholar is different from the experience of a person who's trying to become a scholar in the 8th or 9th Hijri centuries or so. Entirely different. I think you have much more difficulties with the technology and everything. You have so many difficulties, and that's why I started accepting the fact that a lot of people who will be called scholars in the future or now or so, they are not as good as I want them to be. Like sometimes I have certain standards, yes, against which I judge whether a person is a scholar or not, and I have to lower my standards and to accept the fact that a lot of people are very beneficial. They are benefiting their students, their communities and everyone, but they are not as good as I wanted them to be. However, we have to aim at the the highest thing we can achieve. We do not compete with if you have to compete, then compete with the dead. Yes, those are the ones with whom you speak. Do not compete with people who are alive, from two perspectives. The first one is that it's a higher standard. The second is that scholars who are still alive are alive, and this is the issue. Al-hayyu la tu'manu alayhi al-fitna. A person who is still alive is not safe, cannot be guaranteed he cannot guarantee avoiding al-fitna. This applies to myself and everyone who is still alive. Let's try to answer the question in a detailed way. My advice is ulum al-hadith, definitely ulum al-hadith and the Arabic language. Yeah, this is the priority now, ulum al-hadith and the Arabic language. Once you become an intermediate student in both, or while trying to be an intermediate student in both, or once you become an intermediate student in both, and you have the seriousness and you have the insistence, the seriousness of a very good student of knowledge, then you have to study what I call the usul of the madhab, not the usul al-fiqh of the madhab, not how Ahmad's mind worked. Not this. This is also important. It can be studied. Yeah, can always be studied whenever you want to study it, especially after having a good level of the Arabic language. Usul al-fiqh should be studied. I'm talking about the usul of the madhab, how the mujtahideen, the scholars of the madhab, worked on the madhab of their imam. The topic that I discuss in the foundational principles, and I think when the foundational principles is, I'm not sure if we will republish it in an enhanced version, not enhanced, full of hawashi, a longer version for people who are advanced or relatively more advanced than the original audience that we had in mind when we wrote the foundational principles the first time. The additions, the hawashi that we will add to the book, I think this is what people need to study. Something like Sifat al-Fatwa Ibn Hamdan, but before Sifat al-Fatwa, the introduction and the epilogue of Al-Insaf. This is a topic that is nearly abandoned nowadays, and people who study these things, most of the people who study these things in the world, they do not really understand the topic and the seriousness of the topic, and this requires a person who is a pure Hanbali in fiqh, Hanbali in aqidah, Hanbali in tasawwuf. طبعا it works if you're not Hanbali in the three aspects of the Hanbali madhab. It works. I'm not saying that it's impossible to that it will be nothing. I'm just saying it's perfect when a person is Hanbali in fiqh, Hanbali in aqidah, Hanbali in tasawwuf. This is my opinion. So al-hadith, the Arabic language, while doing this or after becoming an intermediate student, you should focus a lot on the usul of the madhab, how the madhab developed like this, how the minds of these great mujtahideen in the madhab worked in order to reach that level. Yes, in order for the madhab to reach that level. Yes. What ought to be the Hanbali response to the rise of Taymiyyan philosophical positions, Taymiyyan studies in academia and beyond? Really? I've always seen that in academia people are fascinated by Ibn Taymiyyah's positions, especially in the Arabic language, and his rejection of al-majaz and his theory or linguistic theory, the alternative of the traditional way of categorizing things, haqiqah versus majaz, I mean. Actually, I have always been fascinated by how he developed his theory, but it never works when it comes to the attributes of Allah or the aqidah. Yes, and I subscribe to al-haqiqah versus al-majaz eventually. However, you understand, I think the questioner and other students understand that we are not really busy with responses and refutations. This is not our way. Let people say whatever they want to say. The only good response is the proper study of the madhab. This is your response. We should. I will never celebrate this culture of responding, refuting, block people. Yes, this is my instinct, like instinctual response to things. Forget about what they are saying, just move on. Unless it's a debate or a research that is 100% governed by the manners of research and debate, the discipline that we study, the logical discipline that we study. And the first thing that you study there is both parties have to intend. Their pure intention has to be reaching al-haq. Do you find this in academia or beyond? Ibn Taymiyyah was a great scholar. Yeah. There will definitely be benefits when a person studies Ibn Taymiyyah, especially in the academia. Yeah, it's better than a lot of the nonsense that they do. How did this is a very long question. So, how did the Salafi Wahabi movement come together? My theory, and I think it's a historical one as well. So you find some historians who, not some historians. I'm actually fed up with saying that some historians said, actually, al-wathaiq, documents, letters, show that it was just something that developed because of the British intelligence, and this is what you find in the documents of the French and their correspondences, especially that there was a strong presence of the British and the French in the area, in the Arab world, actually, when al-Wahhabiyya emerged. We have a person who had soldiers and power, Ibn Saud, and we had a person who was a very I do not know how to say it in English, mariq, a person who abandoned the traditions of his people and his family, great Hanbali family, and they cooperated, and this is the result. What are the responses to the popular narrative concerning Ibn Abdul Wahab not calling for bloodshed? He didn't call for bloodshed. He did shed people's blood. He didn't call for it. Yeah, he did it. He commanded someone to kill his brother. Like, he gave a crazy person, that you find the story in Ibn Humayd's Suhb al-Wabila, gave a sword, or paid someone to give a sword to a crazy person, and they let him enter where Sheikh Sulaiman radiallahu anhu was, and Sheikh Sulaiman survived in a miraculous manner. Why do I have to respond to this? Why don't people read the history of al-Wahhabiyya, the history of Ibn Abdul Wahab himself? Like, we can never say it was just it was just his sons and his grandsons, like his family and people who came after him. Just go read the history of al-Wahhabiyya and tell me. But people do not read. I'm telling you the history of Ibn Ghanam and the other book I do not remember. Yes, full of stories, how they conquered, how they killed, how they took prisoners, men and women, how they took money, how they became victorious by killing a certain number of people, and they succeeded in conquering they call them futuh, the cities of the Muslimin. And I promise you, we will read the basic books of Ibn Abdul Wahab, and I will show you how his theories lead to bloodshedding in the first place. Then I will show you that we are not now talking about the canonical books of Ibn Wahab, maybe less important books even by Wahhabiyyan themselves. Yeah. And I will show people by reading these books, critical reading of these books. But I'm taking some time off now. I'm after finishing the response of Sheikh Sulaiman. He responded to Qarn al-Shaytan, عليه من الله ما يستحق, الصواعق الإلهية, Sheikh Sulaiman's book. After finishing it, it took me some time to finish it, because we discussed everything in a very detailed way, all the responses, and in a very detailed way. I think it's a very good work, and we did a very good job on it. However, it was exhausting, and I want to live my life without thinking about the Wahhabiyya, because I do not think that they have a great influence. This is my opinion. They do not have a great influence. Yani, it's coming to an end. It's the falling of al-Wahhabiyya. If you do not see it, I think you have to look carefully. You have to consider so many perspectives, not just the one perspective of people who pray in the masjid with you or so. Do not tell me briefly on these things. Again, like the person who said short biography, try to avoid these things. I misunderstood. He said it has already been discussed. Yeah, it's just discussed briefly. I thought he meant discuss it briefly, but he said it has been discussed briefly, or this is the meaning of what. And it discussed briefly here means it has been discussed briefly in one class, maybe a class that I gave, but unsure if we got back to the citation in Sayyid Muhammad al-Alawi book on this. No, I didn't mention the book on this. Yeah, but yeah, read the book, read the similar books. I think they are all great. I think this is enough for one video, and I will continue answering questions and responding to these suggestions in the following ones. والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.